There is a book the church read for centuries and then quietly set aside, not because it was untrue, because it revealed too much. It's called the Protoevangelium of James. And it doesn't begin with Mary's birth. It begins with a man being humiliated in front of everyone he knew. His name was Joachim, a wealthy man, a devout man, the kind who gave double offerings to the temple, just to prove his devotion was real. But on this day, as he stepped forward to place his offering on the altar, a priest stepped in front of him. "You are not worthy," the priest said. "You have no children in Israel." In that world, that single sentence was a verdict. Childlessness wasn't just grief. It was read as divine rejection, whispered proof that God himself had turned away from you. Joachim didn't argue. He didn't defend himself. He simply turned and walked out of the temple. He didn't go home. He went into the wilderness, out among his own shepherds and flocks, away from every face that had watched him be shamed. For 40 days, he didn't return. No wife, no servants, no witnesses. Some accounts say he fasted the entire time. Others say he simply couldn't face the idea of walking back through that city, where by now everyone would know. And somewhere out there, alone under a bare tree, Joachim finally spoke, not to another person, but to God directly. He didn't ask for wealth. He didn't ask for status back. He asked for one thing only. Don't let me die without leaving something of myself in this world. He had no idea that prayer was about to be answered in a way that would echo for 2,000 years through a woman not yet born, a woman who was still, at this moment, nothing more than a longing in her mother's grief. We'll get to her. But first, we need to understand what was happening. At that exact same moment, back inside the walls of Joachim's own house, while Joachim knelt in the wilderness, his wife Anna sat alone in the walled garden of their home. And her grief was, if anything, heavier than his. She had heard what happened at the temple. Word like that always travels faster than the person it wounds. And now, on top of everything else, her husband hadn't come home. Not that night. Not the next. Anna didn't know if he was alive, so she did the only thing left to her. She went out into the garden, sat beneath a laurel tree, and simply existed with her sorrow. Above her, a bird's nest, chicks, newly hatched, calling for their mother. Anna watched them for a long time. "Even the birds of the sky have children," she said quietly. "Even the earth brings forth its fruit in season. But I am cursed above all of them." She wasn't exaggerating for effect. In her world, this was simply how it felt. Like every living thing around her had been given the one thing she'd been denied. Over and over, for years, she didn't rage. She didn't demand answers. She just knelt down, right there among the trees, and prayed the kind of prayer that comes only after you've run out of anywhere else to put the pain. And it was in that exact moment, grief still fresh on her face, that the garden around her began to change. Back inside the walls of their home, something was happening that Anna could never have expected. She was still in that garden, still kneeling beneath the laurel tree, tears drying on her face, when the light around her changed. Not sunset, not clouds passing. The air itself seemed to grow heavier, brighter, closer. Anna looked up, and standing before her, impossibly, was a messenger of the Lord. Her first instinct wasn't joy. It was fear. Every account agrees on that. She didn't fall to her knees in gratitude. She recoiled. "Anna," the angel said, "the Lord has heard your prayer. You will conceive and bear a child, and her name will be spoken in every corner of the world." For a moment, Anna said nothing at all. Years of shame, years of being told her body was a punishment, undone in a single sentence she hadn't even dared to hope for. And at that exact same hour, though neither of them yet knew it, the same messenger was standing before Joachim, out in the wilderness, delivering the very same news. 9 months later, Exactly as promised, Anna gave birth to a daughter. She named her Mary. From the very first day, Anna treated this child differently than any parent in her position might have. This wasn't just a daughter. This was an answered prayer, a living miracle, proof that she had never truly been cursed at all. So Anna made a vow. Before Mary could even walk, her mother had already decided this child would not belong to an ordinary life. She would be given back to the temple, to God Himself, the moment she was old enough to leave her mother's arms. By the time Mary took her first steps, Anna was already preparing her for that departure. And by the time she was 3 years old, it was time to keep that promise. When Mary turned 3, Joachim and Anna kept their vow. They dressed her in fine linen, gathered a procession of young girls carrying lamps, so that, according to the text, the child's heart would not be seized by anything outside the temple, and led her up the steps. The high priest himself received her. And according to the account, something extraordinary happened the moment she reached the top step. Mary danced, a 3-year-old child, dancing on the altar steps, as though she already belonged there more than anywhere else she had ever been. Joachim and Anna left her there. They walked away, back to their ordinary life, and their daughter remained behind, inside the temple walls, to be raised not by them, but by the priests themselves. What happened next is the part most people have never heard, because, according to this account, Mary wasn't simply taught and fed like any temple child. She was fed, the text says, by the hand of an angel. Year after year, she grew up inside those walls, untouched by the outside world, unseen by anyone beyond the priesthood, until she reached an age where the temple itself could no longer keep her. By the time Mary turned 12, the priests faced a problem they hadn't fully planned for. A girl couldn't simply remain in the temple forever. Jewish law and custom didn't allow it, but she also couldn't simply be sent back out into ordinary life, not after everything that had led to her being there in the first place. So the high priest did something unusual. He gathered every widower in the region, every man of standing who had once been married and lost his wife, and called them to the temple, each one carrying his own wooden staff. No one, including the priests themselves, fully understood what they were waiting for. Then, according to the account, a sign appeared. A dove, pure white, descended from above and landed, without hesitation, on a single staff among the entire crowd. The staff belonged to a much older man, a carpenter. His name was Joseph. Joseph didn't step forward eagerly. In fact, the text says he protested. He already had grown sons. He was far older than Mary, and taking on a young bride was the last thing he wanted at this stage of his life. But the sign had chosen him. And in that world, a sign like this wasn't something you argued with for long. Joseph took Mary into his care, not as a wife in the ordinary sense, but as a guardian, exactly as the sign had demanded. He returned to his own work, building and carpentry, while Mary remained devoted to the temple's service. It was around this time that the priests gave her a new task, to help weave a new veil for the temple, the same sacred curtain that would one day tear in two at the moment of the crucifixion. Mary was given the finest threads, purple and scarlet, reserved only for the purest hands. She was sitting exactly there, alone with her thread and needle, when the room around her filled with light she hadn't asked for and hadn't expected. This is where most tellings of Mary's story begin. Her name spoken by an angel, a message that would reshape everything. But now you know what came before it. A father humiliated into the wilderness, a mother weeping under a barren tree, a child raised inside stone walls, fed, the old text insists, by hands that were never quite human, a staff, a dove, and an old man who never wanted this. None of it appears in the Bible you were handed. All of it was preserved anyway, in a book quietly left out of Scripture, and quietly still read today by anyone willing to open it.